My name is Dibala Nair. I trust that you've woken up well today. It is a beautiful day, the 24th of October 2023. And of course, every Tuesday we have Siasa Fiesta coming your way, where we continue pace looking at the political landscape in the country. Remember, today is the retreat day that begins for the National Dialogue Committee. They will be retreating, of course, to Naivasha to thrash out a lot of issues that were papered and placed before them. Questions were papered, of course, and fired towards, on queries were made as well through the public participation, and that is bound not to be matters that will be now given much premium as far as the National Dialogue Committee is concerned. We shall be looking at that, especially with the IBC crisis, where we have a voter who has moved to the courts right now to challenge the IBC crisis that we have because of late by-election, and we shall also be looking at that moving forward. Dr. Nyikal also will be laying it bare for us what the new universal health care or universal health coverage really portends for you as a taxpayer, and what you need to know regarding that particular act right now that was shaken into place by the president on Thursday when he assented to the bill that now has paved way now to the operationalization of that particular bill. Right, quite a mouthful for me this morning. But we will be looking at other after issues as well, with the new road levy that is bound to be coming your way, and already we have people challenging that particular move, that it's a new tax that is bound to be also heaping up on the many taxes that we do have already as Kenyans. But let's see what is fresh off the press this morning. We begin with the bold paper. This is what you're waking up to on the front page of The Standard this morning. Murderers to get lighter sentences, it says. That is what we have on the front page of the The Standard this morning. Radical proposals. Chief Justice Martha Koome is asking MPs to change the penal code, hence making punishment for capital offences less severe in light of global conventions. You can follow the story on page 2 of The Standard this morning. Also, Talks team agrees to deal with high cost of living. As you can see, as mentioned there, the National Dialogue Committee members. We have the leader of Majority there, Kimani Ichung'wah, Minority Leader Opiyo Wandayi, Wiper Party Leader Kalonzo Musyoka, and Senate Majority Leader Aaron Cheruiyot at Lake Elementaita Mountain Lodge yesterday. You can follow the story inside, and of course we'll give you details of this as well. But key dates and resolutions that you might need to know this morning. Mandate of the committee was extended by a further 30 days from October 28th. And also we have the committee shall be required to report on or before November 26th and thereafter submit a report to Parliament. And August 29th, Debt Parliament established committee to probe issues and report back within 60 days. Also, the team agreed to come up with proposals to make life better for Mwananchi. You can follow the story inside The Standard this morning. Let's see what we have on the sidebar, or on the teaser as well. On the sidebar, Ruto walks diplomatic tightrope in China visit. That story, you can follow it on page 14 and 15. And Lana's prepared to sit last KCPA since it was installed in 1985. You can read all about it on page 8 of The Standard this morning. And looking at the teaser as well on top here, thousands stare at evictions in Jiru, Masai Mao. That story tucked on page 5, 6, and 7 of The Standard this morning. Also, women's unpaid labor gives men playtime. All that tucked away inside the Financial Standard this morning. Arsenal fans hunger for victory. That is the quest there. You can follow the story on page 38 and 39 of The Standard this morning. This is how it looks. Make sure you grab a copy for yourself. The Daily Nation, why CJ wants life sentence scrapped is a splash. And the flag reads, criminal justice amendments also seek to abolish petty offenses, protect intersex persons. You can follow the story inside the Daily Nation this morning. Radical. The judiciary, let me try and expand this for you so that we can look at it clearly together. The judiciary has established 2 bills in the National Assembly that propose sweeping changes to the Penal Code and the Criminal Procedure Code, including the readjustment of sentences for murder and robbery to ensure proportionate punishment and the abolishment of life sentences, which will be replaced with a maximum sentence of 30 years. The story continues on page 4 of the Standard this morning. Not the Standard, but the Daily Nation. Also, shilling exchanges at 150 to the dollar. The official exchange rate of the shilling against the dollar yesterday crossed the 150 unit mark following a period of sustained and consistent depreciation. You can follow the story on page 6 of the Daily Nation this morning. And also, more pain at the pump if tax proposal gets nod. Roads board seeking to raise fuel levy by 5 shillings. Remember, now you're paying 217. Raising it to 5 shillings again will go up beyond 20. That story continues on page 7. If this road levy will see the light of day as it's being proposed. You can follow the story inside the Daily Nation. Also, squatters on Kirima's city land given up to December the 31st to leave or reverse bulldozers. There goes a warning. Squatters on Kirima's city land given up to December 31st to leave or reverse bulldozers. That is happening in Jiru. You can follow the story on page 12 of the Daily Nation. On the sidebar, inheritance. You jump to the Star, but let me just show you what we have on the sidebar there. And it says here, Rai has in court fight over family wealth. The family of deceased tycoon Taralo Chan Singh Rai is embroiled in a dispute over the ownership of Rai Investments Limited after 2 sons moved to court over alleged manipulation of shares. You have a story on page 3. Also, education matters now. Lobby seeks to hold costly university loans funding plan. The Kenya Human Rights Commission has filed a case at the High Court seeking to stop the Ministry of Education from implementing the funding model for higher education unveiled by the President in May. And this continues on the back page of the Daily Nation this morning. On football, Man United desperate for win as Copenhagen come calling in Europe. Manchester United have no time for sentimentality from Rasmus Højlund as he faces his younger twin brother or brothers and former club when FC Copenhagen visit Old Trafford. You can follow the story on page 35 of the Daily Nation this morning. All right, this is how it looks. Make sure you grab a copy for you to get all the wiser as far as the information is concerned today. Why newborn deaths spiral out of control is what he's holding as a splash this morning on the front page of a Star. Too high report cites inefficient health services and words. Auditor points to lack of basic equipment, commodities at levels 1 and 3 facilities. You have the story on page 4 and 5 of a Star this morning. And Ruto and Raila teams retreat to Naivasha to hammer out a deal. Same picture here that we saw in other dailies. Taking a break, National Dialogue Committee members here, Kimani Ichung'wah, Opiyo Wandayi, Kalonzo Musyoka and Aaron Cheruiyot during a retreat to prepare their report and final negotiations on pending issues in Naivasha yesterday. Also on the sidebar, how bill could trigger fresh LGBTQ debate. Proposed change to the Criminal Procedure Code could open the door to transgenderism by broadening the definition of intersex amid push for wider inclusion. Intersex is a person born with both male and female genitalia. A transgender is one who is transiting from one gender to another through hormonal therapy. And you can follow the story on page 6 of the Star this morning. Or gender reassignment as well. Live coverage of protest media houses right. This is what the court determined. The High Court has ruled that the Communications Authority of Kenya was wrong to threaten 6 television stations with closure to stop giving live coverage of the Azimio protest early in the year. Judge John Chigiti found that the agency violated the rights of the television stations. You have the story continuing on page 8 of the Star this morning. And widow of slain Pakistan scribe wants cops behind shooting prosecuted. You have a story on page 2 of the Star this morning. People Daily up next. This is what you're waking up to. By election voter sues IBC. Electoral Commission dead. Petitioner wants court to order selection team to name new officials who can conduct poll to replace dead MP. As CEO Marjan says staff cannot move or change boundaries without commissioners. You have the story on page 4. There is where now we have a pickle as far as moving forward with the boundaries is concerned and a constitutional crisis. You can follow the story on page 4 of the People Daily this morning. And this is what Marjan, IBC CEO, said. Crucial operations at the electoral agency came to a standstill following the retirement of Chairman Wafula Chebukati and Commissioner Abdi Gulie and Boya Molu in January. And also still on the front page, CPJ, 20 journalists have died in Israeli-Hamas war. And you can see the devastation as the rockets continue to be, of course, dropped there. Shellings continue. Palestinians search for survivors after an Israeli airstrike on buildings in Jabalia in Gaza Strip. According to the Committee to Protect Journalists, a lobby group that fights for the rights of journalists, the number of news workers who have been killed in the conflict between Israel and Hamas rose to 23 yesterday after a freelance photojournalist was killed in Rafah city. All right, all in the name, of course, of trying to give you a fresh information from the ground, putting their lives in harm's way. And we stand with our fellow journalists as well. Here is the secret to happiness. You can find all about it. 74% good health, 60% family, 35% opportunities to make money, 20% job retention, and 15% increased creativity. This is on the news bit, right? Are those the secrets or to happiness? Well, you find out. You have that story inside the People Daily. Another blow against Nairobi homeowners. Court orders thousands of people to be evicted from 1,000 acres belonging to Let City billionaire Kirima's family. The story continues on page 12. And also you can meet the coach who inspires marathon star Kiptum, how Rwandan-born trainer Hakizimana transformed humble runner into a long-distance world champ. You have a story tucked away inside the business of the People Daily this morning. Taifa leo, kwa nini tunahepa Raila? These are the faces of the rebels in ODM, wanasiasa mbalimbali waliokuwa wandani wakuu wa Tinga waeleza kiini cha kutengana na kinara wao. And you can see some of the faces there. You can follow the story on page 2. And Kega arukia Ruto kwa mapuuza. Uhuru akataa maridhiano. Kioni asema anayetaka kuzungumza na rais wa zamani afanye hivyo kimya kimya. You have a story on page 3 of Taifa Leo carrying that particular story. As you buckle down to business, just know that Kenya shilling officially has hit 150. That is the exchange rate, the official exchange rate. Banks selling at between 154.95 and 157. That is 17.7% of value lost gain, of value lost against dollar since January. And it continues to say the official exchange rate of a shilling against the dollar yesterday crossed the 150 unit mark following a period of sustained and consistent depreciation that has narrowed the gap between the official and retail selling rates of US currency. Since the beginning of the year, the shilling has depreciated by 17.7% against the dollar, which is more than double the 8.3% it shared against the unit in the whole of 2022. This story continues on page 2 of the Business Daily. Also, MPs are planning new entity to regulate banks' loans, and it says that new financial markets watchdog will be set to regulate the cost of credit and protect borrowers and their guarantors from rogue banks if proposals and the new bill are approved. The proposed Financial Markets Conduct Authority will regulate and supervise the conduct of entities providing financial products and services to retail customers, handing it some functions currently performed by the Central Bank of Kenya and other financial sectors regulators. It is one of the new 3 entities proposed under the Financial Markets Conduct Bill 2023, which has been approved for publication by the National Assembly's Finance and National Planning Committee. And you can follow the story on page 2 of the Business Daily this morning. Treasury, what Kenya got from China? The recent visit by a Kenyan delegation led by President William Ruto to China was not motivated by a quest for new laws, according to the Treasury, despite previous indications that the country would seek to unlock new funding for road projects. But read all about it. What was the motivation? The story is tucked away on page 3 of the Business Daily. And Kere waives 230 billion shillings in fines interest for pardoned taxpayers. The Kenya Revenue Authority projects that about 2.8 million taxpayers will get automatic waivers for accrued interest and penalties amounting to 230 billion shillings at the end of the ongoing 10-month tax pardon in June 2024. Also, commercial banks lending rates at 81-month high. That story continues on page 4 of the Business Daily this morning. In Tanzania, find out why Tanzania leads East Africa in trade deals and acquisitions. A new report shows that Tanzania will, let me try and just zoom out to see what it says here. It's not very clear. I'll just read the sub-headline or leave it for you. A new report shows that Tanzania was the leading choice for investors seeking opportunities or acquisitions in the region in 2022, with experts mentioning political stability, economic diplomacy, and a conducive investment climate as among the factors. You can follow the story on page 2. And of course, also a recent survey by KPMG also shows that the investors' choice right now is Tanzania. Bee venom could be a game changer for entrepreneurs. Read all about that also on page 4 of the Citizen this morning. Samia, use tech in trade dispute resolution. She entreats or implores Tanzanians. You can follow the story inside the Citizen this morning. In Uganda, government to roll out new injectable HIV drug. That is the latest development there. Also, inside Bugembe Cathedral, in the host of Busoga royal wedding, and Besigye allies to start nationwide mobilization. This is about the FDC feud. Follow that inside the Daily Monitor. Among Magogo Get twin sons. You can follow the story inside also the Daily Monitor in Uganda. I'll be showing you what we have on the front page of the New Times, and also what we have on the front page of East African this week, China Daily, amongst other international publications as well. But for now, let me just hear from our panelists already here in studio before we continue past with our conversation. Just remember that this morning I'm holding court with Eden Canaan, who is a member of Parliament, Eldas. Also, we have with us Dr. James Nyikal, who is a member of Parliament from Seme. We'll be joined by Dan Marzo, who is a senator from Makueni, and also we'll be joined by Owen Baya, who is the Deputy Majority Leader at the National Assembly. A warm, hearty welcome to you, Mheshimiwa. Good morning, good to see you.
Good morning.
We've missed you for the last 3 weeks. You went MIA.
A lot of activities.
A lot of activities.
Side
activities. But good to see you finally.
Thank you.
So what has been your projection so far, looking at what has been happening, especially with the National Dialogue Committee? We have also the new universal health coverage that was unveiled, and that is bound also to be affecting Kenyans' pockets as well. And Dr. Nyikal will prime us more robustly and deeply on that this morning. But from your own assessment, just looking and sitting back and looking at, maybe so to speak, the panoramic view of what the political landscape in the country is looking like. Good morning.
I think we are all experiencing actually reality checks, and the dialogue team, I think they have done their bit. They have now to concretize, contextualize, and come up with a report that will meet the expectations of the people of Kenya. And I think that's very important. And everybody now, the atmosphere is pregnant with serious expectation on the outcome of the bipartisan team. And I hope and pray that they will come up with issues that will unite the country and take us forward. And that is our expectation, our minimum expectation. On the issue of universal healthcare, I'm sure my brother here is an expert, having been a former PS, been a professor in that particular field. But I think one of the things that I really see is there's a change in tackling issues that we have been fearing before. So the fear of the unknown has been put aside. The provision of universal healthcare actually was one of the key components under President Uhuru's government. It wasn't implemented very much. Kibaki attempted, it didn't work very much. President Uhuru has decided to take it head on. We have provided the legislative framework. The legal framework is now properly there. What remains right now is the goodwill and the implementation. But I must admit that there is no law that is 100% perfect. They are all man-made. And therefore, once we start actualizing the actual law, this is when we will know its pitfalls. And that is the time when we will say, this has added value, this has not added value, and that will give us an opportunity either to do a further amendment or further recommendations in line with the wishes and the workings of that particular act. For now, the atmosphere, again, I say, is pregnant with expectation, and I hope very soon, as the bill envisages, as the act envisages, because right now it's an act of parliament, because it has been ascended to by the president, that it's going to meet the expectation. Health has been very expensive. And there are two aspects to it: turning Kenya into a health tourism hub, and also providing the same basic universal health care to Kenyans. So these two aspects, one as a source of foreign exchange earner, one as a basic right, I think can be experienced by properly implementing the bill. And that is what we expect the professionals in that particular sector to attempt actually to do, because we can. Why will we go to India? Why will you go to Turkey? Why will you go to the United States? We have some of the best medical professionals, and I'm sure my brother here will attest to this. Kenya has been ranked as one of the best in human resource capital, including the medical profession. But what is missing is the goodwill. What is missing is the appreciation that we can do this, and in the process we can save a lot of resources for this country, and even create more employment opportunities and lift so many people who are right now unemployed, in particular graduates, to fill the gap. And that is what exactly this bill or this particular act actually was meant to do. The hula blues about the provisions and this, I will say that there is no law that is 100% perfect. The only two things that are perfect are the Bible and the Quran, because those are the words of God. These are the things that we made. Professor here will tell you, even where you try, there's an aspect where you have to accept there's a trial and error. And that is the bit now, even as we passed, we didn't pass it with finality. We say there will always be provision for further amendments. And that is where we are.
Fantastic. All right. And we'll come back to you, especially on the issue of Sabina Chege is raising some brouhaha, as they normally say. Especially now that we have the National Dialogue Committee in Nakuru, in Naivasha, I should say. And they're saying, in fact, even in Parliament, that they're going to scupper the whole process in Parliament if the Speaker does not give it much premium. This issue of Sabina Chege and the way she was de-whipped by Azimio as the minority whip.
I think let's call a spade a spade. Jubilee is the second largest party in the minority side. And the third largest party in the current parliament. UDA, ODM, and Jubilee. Jubilee has made a decision to have the Honorable Sabina Chege as its representative. There are certain issues that are in court, which really I do not want to delve in because of the fear of sub judice. But I must say that on behalf of Jubilee, our choice remains the Honorable Sabina Wanjiru Chege. But history also repeats itself. The same thing that happened to Wetangula in the last parliament, the same thing that happened to Mudavadi, the same thing that happened to many other people is what is Honorable Sabina actually is being subjected to. But we must say that our choice remains, we as Jubilee, we are 34 members, our choice remains the Honorable Sabina Chege. These other bits that our brothers, in particular the ODM, wants to force on us, will not work for us, because at the end of the day, we are 34 members. They have one and a half, one who is 50-50 and one. All the others don't subscribe to that philosophy. So where do you end up? It's good to deal with the reality. Allow the Honorable Sabina Chege to function. This issue of saying Parliament will not work, I don't want to, we'll deal with it when we're there, because Parliament is a house of procedures, house of traditions. But the era of ultimatum, the era of hula blues, the era of chest thumping, I thought those things are long gone. It doesn't work. You think somebody can come to that floor and intimidate a person of my nature or a person of Honorable Sabina? No, it can't work. The era is gone. Let's reason together. The Honorable Sabina Chege is our choice, period. You can give any other title that you want to any of your groupings, but Sabina Chege remains our choice. We'll stand by her, we'll support her, and that is the decision of the Jubilee BG. If you do it any other way, you know, the semantics, you can choreograph it to suit your propaganda tools, but the reality is we as Jubilee membership support the Honorable Sabina Chege to hold that position. And then on the other bit, on the issue of blaming the Speaker is a product of, let's have a bit of civility in our public pronouncement, because when you threaten everybody, you will end up threatening yourself. It doesn't work. Go to people, reason together. The Speaker is a man of immense institutional experience. As a senior advocate, I actually would have been the father of Parliament if he was still in Parliament. But today, in his absence, I'm the father of Parliament. He's a man of immense parliamentary experience. He understands the procedures. But equally, remember, there's something called Fair Administrative Action Act. We deliberated. So even where you want to purport that you will do this because of your numerical strength, remember, every individual has a right. So the issue will be, you can't use force to remove Honorable Sabina. Right. Follow the due process. Follow the due process. And I want to tell Honorable Sabina, wherever she is, all the individuals who have been in the past mistreated by ODM have benefited from that mistreatment, and that has added to the embodiment of their CVs. And look at the Honorable Wetangula, look at the Honorable, you know how he was removed. Look at the Honorable.
So she's poised to.
So she's poised
to rise high and high.
Rise high is the beginning,
because she's being persecuted.
Yes, it's a blessing in this guy. So wherever she is, stand firm, remain high.
Let's hear from
and we as members of Jubilee, we will support you and we'll rally our troops to support the Honorable Sabina Chege.
All right, Jikal, you're persecuting Sabina Chege, so to speak, as is being expressed here. So, of course, this is also up for her success.
Sabina Chege is persecuting herself. You know why? She wants to sit where her heart is not. And you know, law actually represents what should be reality. And if you try the law to force reality, you miss justice, which is the foundation of the law. So if you say, you are an Azimio, you campaigned in Azimio. Nobody campaigned in Azimio harder than Sabina. Even in Nyanza, she may probably campaigned more than me in Nyanza for Azimio. Now, when changes occur and Azimio is not in power, let's not go into how, then now you want to go to the other side. Naturally, it won't work. So when you try things that are not natural, even if you change the law, or even if you go according to the law, but the thing itself is unjust, it won't work. So she should sit where her heart is. I think that's the basic thing. She will find that whatever happens, if she's where her heart is not, it will not work. In Parliament, you are leading people. So if the troop you are leading are not with you, and you also are not with them as a whole, you lose that. I mean, you could be in Jubilee, but if you put the whole Azimio together, are you leading that team? If you're not leading that team, it doesn't work. You know, people, you know, the trouble is, because we create laws, we want to hide injustice in law. and it there fails because it is fundamentally wrong. So my summary for Sabina, sit where your heart is. So I don't think that seat, she wants the seat, but her heart is not in the principle where the seat should be. Let me leave that one aside. Whatever we do, whatever gimmicks we go through, that is what will remain. Even if today you brought her into that house to lead the Azimio side, my friend here will tell you, it won't work. So why do you want to go through it? If I were her, I would have, when you leave a place, you leave it. You don't leave and then you have your hand, your leg somewhere behind. You will split into two. Anyway, I leave that for that. There are three issues you raised. The other one is
something very important that you have said before you move to the next one. It's true that as a leader, one has to lead people.
Yes.
Azimio was supposed to be a coalition of interests. The interest has failed to work. And I'll repeat this many times, and I've said it before. We as Jubilee have been conned in broad daylight.
You've been conned?
We have been conned.
That's a very strong verbiage.
And I will repeat it. Wherever they are, we have been conned in broad daylight. We are the second largest party. We lost all our slots. Ideally, the deputy minority leader is supposed to be ours after ODM in the National Assembly. The PSC commission was supposed to be ours. It went to other groups. We lost the entire leadership in the Senate. We invoked the exit clause. They are unable to execute because they do not have the internal dispute resolution mechanism. And yet, on the face of it, you are being told to subscribe this. We have exited. Why don't you accept?
Let me just... You made your point. Let me just summarize.
Just a minute, Professor.
All those are the gimmicks of the law.
No,
I go with the reality of life. Now, even if with Jubilee, if it is to be Jubilee, must it be Sabina Chege? Let somebody in Jubilee who has the heart in Azimio. Now, if you have Jubilee who does not have the heart in Azimio, let them go.
All right. So I wanted just to allow me to just also rope in Dan Manzo to tell us more about his weekend and how it has been. I think last week he was busy in the courts, just trying to get a reprieve for some of the Mavoko people who are affected, or representing some of the leaders there as well. I saw you with legislator Patrick Macau as well. Just tell us, first of all, these developments, what does it really portend moving forward? I can see we have now in Njiru 1,000 acres land that, of course, was hived off from Kirime's family. So some of the squatters there also will be evicted. Demolition is coming their way, so the notice is up that they should be aware that bulldozer is coming their way.
Yes, at least they have been given notice. What happened in Mavoko was a disaster. First of all, the court rules out on technicalities. Just says for lack of service or for failing to effect service on Machakos county government, the matter is dismissed. And you see, immediately government kicks in and goes on to demolish. Not only, you know, in Mavoko there are quite a number of parcels of land and the titles. It goes on even to go beyond the land which was in court, and there are people actually with the title deeds who have been affected, and there are others also with matters pending before other courts which have been affected. I think the whole essence of justice, a lot of times, and the Fair Administration of Justice Act says that, you know, you can never dismiss a court matter on technicalities. And a lot of times, courts have moved suo moto on their own motion to make sure that interests of everybody are taken care of. So when you have a situation like that...
You've moved suo moto.
Suo moto, meaning on its own motion.
Latin, yeah,
on its own motion.
Yeah, suo moto.
You know,
sounds like
courts in Kenya are usually very keen and very clear. But unfortunately also we have situations which get out of hand, like the current one. First of all, immediately you give a ruling of that nature. You also give stay. You know, I've never seen courts deny stay, especially where matters are so heavy and where there is likelihood of rectification and there is likelihood of other people suffering who are not who were not being part of the suit. So unfortunately, this didn't happen, and an attempt later on in the courts to get a stay was too late because it had already been overtaken by events. But that does not deny a chance of appeal. But when a serious damage has been done, you know, it means even compensation is a problem. The main question is, before Portland, which is a parastatal, gets the land, how much did it pay for it? And where did it get the land from? It never paid a coin for it. The land belongs to community. We have a Community Lands Act and we have the Land Act. Currently, the land in Kenya is administered through the counties as the trustees of public land in the counties, and the National Land Commission as a trustee of other lands. The national government really no longer has mandate on land unless through the National Land Commission. So a matter of land is very emotive. It's very critical. People are, you know, you have a situation whereby you have power lines done by the government, even the World Bank project. You have schools done by CDF. You have roads done by the Ministry of Roads. It points out into a lot of things. And after all, the mining was stopped. And then the issue of equity. If you see, you know, like the Green Park Estate was part of that land. It is already developed. So you have one side people are being demolished for, the other side people are being allowed to develop. Rather the matter, the land court should go beyond just the normal face of things. You should dig deeper, take charge of bigger things. That has already happened. But we look forward into there be justice to the people whose lives have been afflicted, have been affected. That's the role of the state. And I also want to say that the president issued statements which indicated that there was a correlation into the matter. There was keen interest. So I thought everybody should be given an opportunity. In all these other scenarios, if you see what happened in Kitale, there were squatters, there was a discussion. And even there are situations like Waitiki, where government has purchased the land on behalf of the people who are settled there. So even in Jiru and all these other places, I think a discussion should take place. The government should come in, the National Land Commission, courts where necessary should come in, individuals who claim to own land should come in, and then the sanctity of a title. At what time do you revoke a title? Can the president revoke any title, really? Revocation clauses, you know, when do they apply? Otherwise, everybody owning a title can be revoked anytime. Even the owner of these premises where we are, somebody will make a statement in the morning, we have revoked this title. Then in the afternoon, somebody runs to court, and the next day there is a court order, and the next day, you know, so we need to protect and give people an opportunity to be able to rectify what has gone wrong. A lot of people have found themselves with the title. If that title has been achieved, you know, fraudulently, the law is very clear. Any title which was acquired fraudulently can be nullified. But then you must balance. If there are already people there who have been cheated, if there is somebody who has bought land for value, what happened to their value, their investments which have been made by those families? So I think we need to think this issue as a country. It means anybody with a title anywhere in the country, one day they may be told this is not your property. People have gone to the banks, they have taken loans, institutions are involved. So what happened in Maboko is most unfortunate, but I think should not be allowed to happen in another part of the country. The courts should now be aware of this, the government should be aware of this, and they must give an opportunity for whoever is inside that piece of land also to have a chance to defend themselves and to tell their story.
Right, and it seems also this has sparked a lot of interest, especially on reclaiming some of its lands, because you can see the the National Lands Commission as well is retrieved some huge acreage of grabbed land in Kiambu. So there's a flash of interest on people who have been sitting on grabbed land, public land, that you're forewarned. Maybe it's high time to actually check also the veracity and the efficacy of the titles. But we can see the collusion that is happening in the lands ministry, where even the veracity of your own title deed cannot have a backing with the records from the Ministry of Lands. So you might just be having a paper which is useless because there's no commensurate backing of the records. Some of them, they've just disappeared mysteriously.
I like simplicity. Let me say a very simple thing about the whole land issue in Kenya. It's the government, square and simple. And when people lose their property or land, actually the government perpetuity, starting from far back, should be able to actually take the responsibility. Where, particularly with titles, where somebody actually went through the government process and government offices and got a title, even if there was a problem within that, this is a government officer who actually issues the title. For me, as a simple Kenyan, if I want to buy a piece of land, I just go and I do a search. What is the meaning of a search? Once I've done a search, my assumption is the government has the capacity to go all through the details, including the history of the land. And so when they give me a piece of paper which says my title is clean, what am I expected to do as an ordinary citizen? Do I have the capacity to go 10 or 20 years back to know that the government has all that? So when they're issuing clearance and saying this title is clean, from that point on, my simple mind says they hold responsibility. Whatever fraud, if it went within, if I myself was not involved in the fraud, like I'm a third buyer, the government holds responsibility for that. And I think that's the principle we should, so that when before we move bulldozers, to me, all those people who have lost, where this process went through government system, all those guys should be compensated by the government.
Right.
Period.
Right. But okay.
Period.
I think let's separate facts from fiction. Facts. Number one, the sanctity and legality of title use must be respected and protected at all times, because that gives that's very important. Two, the issue of land has been emotive in Kenya. Three, there has always been well entrenched cartelias, land in this country, and you know it from the colonial time. I just need to understand the history of land education in Kenya. One time, in my former constituency, Wajir West, there was a speculation that there is a discovery of gas. You know, someone got a title, a big chunk of Wajir West from 1989. But later on, when they realized the yields were too low, they left it and they used it as a dumping site. That is the history. I've had the privilege of being the chair of PIC, and I'm familiar with the issue of East African Portland. I think there are certain things that we must accept. Land politics is emotive. Land cartelias are well entrenched, and they may be some of the richest people actually in Kenya. One thing, we must also respect the due process of the law, in particular the courts, the sanctity of title, but equally a crime is a crime. For those, and I must admit, the majority of the victims in this at the river land are either people from my community, from Mount Kenya, or from the Kisi community. The majority of them, actually, the victims who have been conned are the Somalis, the Kikuyus. These are entrepreneurs, and the Kisis. To that extent, I am biased.
You should be.
Yes, I am biased, and therefore, for those who have participated in that fraudulent scheme to defraud innocent businessmen, in fact, they are so powerful that they can connive with those the gatekeepers of the Ministry of Lands who keep the registers. Like what Professor here has alluded to, actually is correct. Because if you do a search and you are told this land is correct, that fraudulent activity has two aspects: the initiator and the person who is complacent at the ministry. In my opinion, the government should go for all this criminal network and ensure that those who have been duped to get their rights, East African Portland gets back its land, because that's an investment to our government agency, and deal with the criminal cartels who have duped many Kenyan public. Once we do that, and equally also respect the due process of the courts, the due process of the law. So once we combine this, we'll remove that aspect of the fear of the unknown. This is what we are saying. You know, in Kenya, there's this mysterious fear that nobody wants to touch. We fear it. No, We must confront this. That is the only way we can be a country governed by the rule of law. It's the only way that we can respect this. So, to me, I'm not very familiar with the decision of the court. I must say I'm disadvantaged. I'm saying court decisions must be respected. But equally, if you look at our investment, the traction of actually foreign direct investment to Kenya, and you analyze some of the key issues that have been acting as impediment, is the issue of land ownership. Once this thing is dealt with, and we have a seamless land ownership process, I can tell you, even many investors will come back here, do business, engage in serious businesses, and that will project Kenya in a positive light. But for now, the way things are, you are not even sure of the ownership of your land.
Let me give what will sound a ridiculous example of what I was saying. That with those cartels, all those people who are bribing, so long as they have passed through the government offices and government officers have sanctioned anything, the government takes responsibility for what those officers did. Let me give an example. You will go to a hospital and then you are given a drug, and the drug is actually bad drug and it shouldn't have been given to you. And then now you suffer, and when you sue the hospital says when they were buying the drug, they were duped, and so they got a bad drug. So now you can't take them to task because you should also have checked the quality of the drug. I mean, do you see how ridiculous it looks?
Who takes responsibility? Is it the individual doctor or the government or the hospital?
It is the hospital, and if the hospital bought it and brought it and the doctor found it, the hospital takes responsibility for having bought it. You can't tell the patient that you should have checked whether the drug was of good quality. And so similarly, when you are a simple citizen and you are going to buy land and you say, I go and do a check. What I think we should really go for and find out, what is the process of search is. What I think is the process of search is shallow. So that a search should even be told, you are going to take a month before we give you a search. Right, so that the search takes all the
Honorable Manzo will tell you, criminal responsibility in criminal justice system, or under the criminal jurisprudence system, criminal responsibility is individual. If a doctor commits a crime in a government facility, that doctor, that act is an individual.
Right.
You can't punish. Government is a big entity.
All right.
To that extent.
I wanted just to wind up on that issue of land, because I think that is not really the main text or main subject that we're discussing this morning as well, just as a by and by. You want to say something?
If there's a criminal act, someone must be prosecuted and convicted, and that person must exhaust all the processes of appeal. What I think is reasonable is, in the event the court finds that something is not right about land, then the people who are there must be given an opportunity, first of all, to move out. Ordinarily, the law prescribes 90 days. They will be able to remove their property, they will be able to argue at the appeal, and they will be able to show their case where they were conned. But the moment you demolish and kick them out, and you allow their property to be stolen, honestly, something is not right there. We need to protect innocent buyers and the people who they themselves were not criminal in trying to acquire property. And I think that's a balance the courts and the government must really look at, so that you don't just make people suffer when they are innocent buyers.
Right, indeed. And of course, we want also to train our focus on the high cost of living, where it will be a issue with the National Dialogue Committee, where the high cost of living will now take center stage in ongoing bipartisan talks process. And this comes a day after a section of opposition leaders threatened to pull out of the talks if the issue is not contained in the committee's report. The committee has retreated to Nakuru for 5 days to write their final report that will be submitted to Parliament for consideration. And Ken Gashuhi tells us more on this.
The National Dialogue Committee today retreated to Gilgil, Nakuru County to deliberate and draft their final report from views collected from Kenyans during the bipartisan talks process. On Sunday, a section of opposition leaders threatened to pull out of the talks if the issue of high cost of living is not addressed by the committee. Today, as the leaders began their retreat, the opposition seems to have scored a first after the committee announced that the topic will top their agenda.
We resumed that discussion today, and we have started tackling the difficult question on the cost of living.
Kenyans across the political divide are feeling the heat of gharama ya maisha. And I want to assure Kenyans that we are dealing with it head on.
Earlier on, leaders from the Kenya Kwanza faction held that the cost of living could not be addressed through dialogue. The committee now says that this will be possible, but will require time and input from experts who will be engaged starting next week.
A very difficult issue of the cost of living is not an issue that we can negotiate on and agree on in one sitting. And we have therefore resolved that beginning next week, we shall be inviting a number of experts.
We may want to involve call expert opinion, and indeed some of the stakeholders. During the stakeholders consultation, we recall that we would tell some of them, go improve on this matter and come back to us.
The committee leaders hinted at the possibility of them receiving more views from Kenyans after the National Assembly and the Senate extended their term by a month.
Like yesterday in Kajiado, we had the governor of Kajiado saying the Ma community will still want to reach out to us. And we said we cannot, of course, bring you to address us publicly, but there's no harm in putting that memorandum across. We don't want to feel that to give an indication that any Kenyan is left behind.
Since last week, we did get the extension approval by both Senate and the National Assembly. Therefore, we have another 30 days from the 28th of October to the 27th, 28th of November.
The two leaders, who reiterated that the committee is cash-strapped, said that sentiments made outside the committee would not be allowed to interfere with the bipartisan talks. Ken Gashuhi, KTN News.
And Kenyans employed in the formal sector will have the net pay on their payslips shrink further following the signing of the Universal Health Coverage Bills into law. The new laws increase contributions to 2.75% of the gross pay for state-fronted health insurance that will then be matched by their employers. Dennis Aseto paints the payslip picture after the signing of the new laws.
The new health insurance fund will see you spend more to afford healthcare. For instance, employees earning 90,000 shillings a month will be mandated by law to part with up to 2,475 shillings, more than double the 1,200 shillings they currently remit monthly. Those earning over 100,000 shillings will part with 2,488 shillings, while those earning over 500,000 shillings will contribute 16,409 shillings, while those with 800,000 shillings and above will be forced to contribute 35,540 shillings to the health services. The new contributions are a further blow to Kenyans who are yet to come to terms with higher taxes at the personal and business front imposed by the Finance Act 2023. Kenyans are also grappling with the high cost of living, as the Finance Act also introduced measures that have pushed up the cost of essential and basic products such as fuel, that has had a multiplier effect in terms of increasing the cost of goods and services.
Some few weeks ago, from here to Kisii, it was 400. As we speak, they charge 600, excluding what we call the luggage fee.
Wameongeza fuel na msara hawajaongeza. Sasa unapata hiyo inatuumiza sana. Juu wakiongeza kila kitu bei yake inaenda juu.
President William Ruto maintains that the new health insurance covers spearheaded by the Kenya Kwanza government will see Kenyans get equal services in hospitals under the much touted Universal Health Coverage Plan.
Tumekuwa tukitafuta mbinu, jinsi na namna ya kuhakikisha ya kwamba afya inamfikia kila Mkenya, na afya isiwafikie wale wako na uwezo peke yao, lakini ifikie kila Mkenya, kwa sababu maisha ya kila Mkenya ni ya muhimu.
The new health laws that the government expects will revolutionize public healthcare are the Primary Healthcare Act 2023, the Digital Health Act 2023, the Facility Improvement Financing Act 2023, and the Social Health Insurance Act 2023. The Social Health Insurance Act scraps the current NHIF and establishes 3 new funds: the Primary Healthcare Fund, the Social Health Insurance Fund, and the Emergency, Chronic and Critical Illness Fund. President William Ruto said the Primary Healthcare Fund will purchase services from the health facilities at levels 1 to 3, while the Social Health Insurance Fund will cover services at levels 4 to 6.
Kila Mkenya atakuwa na Social Insurance Fund card, na wewe utaenda hospitali na utatumia hiyo card, either umejilipia mwenyewe ama umelipiwa na serikali, ili uweze kupata matibabu katika level 4, level 5 and level 6. Kwa hivyo kila Mkenya, either utaenda katika level 1, 2 and 3 na upate matibabu bila malipo, ama uende level 3, level 4, 5 and 6 na utumie kadi yako kupata matibabu.
This being the most recent move on the earnings of Kenyans, which has also witnessed higher taxes and levies such as those introduced by the new Housing Levy Fund and the increase in the National Social Security Fund NSSF rates this year alone. The Finance Act 2023 introduced the Affordable Housing Levy Fund, which has been disputed, in which employees pay 1.5% of their gross pay, that is then matched by the employers also at 1.5%. Analysts say the job creation as well as retention of the current force in the labor market might prove difficult in the coming years, with the employers expected to react to new taxes that will see labor costs shoot up by holding off hiring plans. For KTN News, I'm Dennis Aseto.
All right, talking of new taxes as well, we have the Kenya Roads Board, which is intending to raise the fuel levy by 5 shillings more, and that is bound also to be affecting your fuel prices if this really seals the day. Also, then they're decrying the high cost of living, or the high cost or inflation that is really affecting road maintenance here in the country. So, where are we headed? We take a short break, but we circle back. Dr. Yikal also will break down just that particular payslip, how it's going to look, and what this does portend for you as a taxpayer when it comes to the new universal health coverage. Is there any discernible difference from what Uhuru Kenyatta had done before? We'll learn. Don't go away, you're watching Siasa Fiesta here on Morning Prime.